I'll actually start talking. All right. Hello, everyone. We are back. And today, or now, I should say, we have Wayne Sutton, who is going to be talking to us today about the mental health, specifically of the Black tech worker. Definitely something that's top of mind for a lot of folks, in and out of tech. But before we jump into the questions, and we want to make this as open a dialogue as possible. I'm going to be asking questions. I encourage the folks in the audience as attendees to ask questions, throw them in the chat or in the Q&A. But Wayne, tell us a little bit about yourself for the folks who don't know you.
Yeah. Thanks, Dennis, for having me, and congrats on a successful conference so far. A little bit about me. Try to give you a short version. I feel like I'm old school here. I'm a serial entrepreneur. Actually, I'm still figuring out life, still figuring out entrepreneurship. In 2011, I co-founded the very first incubator accelerator for underrepresented founders back in 2011. I wrote a lot about lack of funding for Black entrepreneurs and diversity tech back in 2012 and 2014 for the Wall Street Journal, USA Today, and TechCrunch. Turned D9 consultant in 2014. Co-founded a consulting firm with my wife, Linda Epler, called Change Catalyst. That was the company. And from 2015 to 2020, we hosted tech inclusion conferences around the world. Had 28,000 attendees, helped some 11,000 job candidates connect with potential tech companies for job opportunities. And in 2017, I wrote an article about my depression and mental health in Silicon Valley. The article went kind of viral, got like 50K views, and it was an eye-opening moment for me because prior to that, I had a lot of people tell me don't write about my depression, don't share my imposter syndrome in tech. And then in 2019, I started the Icon Project, was focused on addressing mental health and wellness for Black and brown men in tech, and also addressing professional development needs as well.
All right. Now that's incredible. And the fact that you're a self-proclaimed introvert makes it even
Yeah.
more impressive. So how does an introvert get the courage to talk about depression publicly and openly?
It's hard. I'll be honest, it's hard. But what I've learned through my therapy sessions is that part of my being able to survive and be able to live and be well is sharing how I feel. It doesn't do me well to hold things in, right? And so as an introvert, I love being alone. I love my time. I love my space. There's some good things about it. There's some negative things about it. There's overthinking, over processing, not responding in the moment. But sharing as an introvert is part what saves me, keeps me going.
Yeah, and I can definitely identify that. I'm more of an extrovert than an introvert. However, I do have an introvert wife.
Yeah.
And it's one of those situations where I can identify a lot of the traits that you just mentioned in her because it's good for her when she's in situations where she's comfortable, she's around people who know her. But getting to know her and getting to that point where you are comfortable takes a while. And
Yeah.
for her, I'm just thinking for her to do what you did probably would never happen. So
Yeah,
you're
each his
definitely
own.
special, and I appreciate you for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
What can you tell me about your current project? So the Icon project.
Yeah.
What is that about, and how does it relate to Black men in tech?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so the Icon Project it came about doing my own experiences, my own needs, my own mental health struggles. I deal with depression and deal with imposter syndrome, and I got a lot of things I deal with mentally. It's just who I am, man. I'm living with it. But also mentoring founders and working with entrepreneurs and in 2017, I think I started a site group called Black Men in Tech, and it evolved to Black and Brown Men in Tech. And there's like 1,000 black and brown guys in it, and through those conversations or interactions, I realized I wasn't alone. I realized I wasn't alone who was dealing with not just, things around mental health and mental wellness, but along like, you know, experiences we were dealing in workspace at, in tech in terms of being a black man and being a brown man, how people treat us differently or what we hold inside. And prior to the pandemic, I didn't see a lot of programs for us. I didn't see a lot of programs like, trying to, address wellness, address professional development, what were we dealing with as Black and brown men in tech, and I want to do something about it. So 2019, we created the Icon Project as an idea, and I like doing events, and before I got burnt out on events, and in 2019 I did the a summit, Icon Summit at Instagram headquarters in New York. Had Dapper Dan as the keynote speaker. Had everybody from John Henry. And I can't say enough about Dapper Dan. It was a that was a special event. Had like 300 black men in the black and brown men in the room, and it was an amazing experience. We were being vulnerable. We were sharing about being our fathers for the first time as grown men. We were sharing about workplace trauma. We were sharing about racism. Sharing about climbing the corporate executive ladder, and that's what Icon Project was about. It's about us uplifting us. And then of course the pandemic happened, and then check that changed everything.
Yeah.
But I put it on hold, but relaunched it again in 2021.
Okay. Now, how is this different from the work you've done previously? Because you've been doing, advocacy for mental health for a long time, and I've been following you now, for a few years, and love your Instagram, by the way.
Yeah, thank you.
If you get an opportunity, Wayne, has a motorcycle and he chronicles his travels, on Instagram. But Icon Ride, tell me a little bit
Yeah.
about what that is and as it relates to the project.
Yeah, so if you're wondering where I'm at, I'm currently in Dalhart, Texas. My home is San Francisco. On Monday, October the 4th, I started a cross country trip from San Francisco going all the way to North Carolina to see my son and my family. And I'm gonna ride back. And I'm calling it Icon Ride to raise awareness for mental health. With the Icon Project, the Icon Project programs consist of course, the summit that we did earlier this year in 2019. We also have a fellows program for Black and Brown men entrepreneurs that's launched in 2022. I also have a therapy fund to be able to provide grants to individuals who may not have access to therapists or coaches. And so, I'm raising awareness for mental health and also for the therapy fund to be able to provide resources for those who go through the program. So I'm doing this cross country motorcycle ride, and it's been an adventure so far. I've been on the road, I think, like 10 days, and my body is like, "What are you doing?" Like I'm not as young as I used to be. But with everything happening in the world, the pandemic and civil, social justice, civil rights movements win, and the war win. I'm like, I'm not getting younger. I've been wanting to go cross country to cities and places I haven't been. Haven't been to Grand Canyon. I visited Grand Canyon last week. And I want to see my son. I love riding motorcycles. Yes, I miss my wife, my cat, but this is what I need to do for my mental health and what I need to do in my life right now.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And where in North Carolina are you going to end up? Where's the final
Uh,
destination?
TG, North Carolina, which is where I grew up, like population 200.
I was
Yes,
gonna
it's
say,
like
where is that?
like surrounded by fields and farmland. But it's near the coast. It's near Wilmington,
Okay, okay.
and about an hour and a half from Raleigh. So it's a little south. So yeah.
Okay, got you. If you want to stop by Charlotte, I got a guest room with a bed. If you
Okay.
need a place to crash even for a couple hours, hit
I
me up.
appreciate it. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
And as far as the mental health aspect of your ride, your personal mental health, um, is that something that you typically do in order to get into a better headspace? Is it everybody has something that they do for their own personal clarity and sanity? Is riding your thing?
Yeah, ride it most definitely. Ride it like my father taught me how to ride a motorcycle as a kid, and then I stopped riding, and then I started back riding again when I moved to San Francisco. And with everything happening in this world right now, and it's been happening, going to continue to happen, we all have to do something to maintain our mental health, our whatever it takes to keep us going. I heard you earlier talking with a speaker who from Scandal, and he said you both like to walk, right? Like, well, motorcycle riding is my thing. It's just this freedom of being in nature and riding, and this thing where you have to focus. Like you have to focus. So you really disconnect from the rest of the world and just focus on the experience and the environment we have. And also, I have to say that you can actually follow my route where I'm going and at iconride.org. So see where I'm at, and also keep an eye on me, make sure I'm safe. Because riding around black is riding around black is the thing, So
Yeah, especially in the deep south. Be careful, man. so, so let me ask you about just and this kind of pivot back to the tech piece of the conversation, but um, I know that techies in general tend to work isolated, and if you are a software engineer, you're going to be working, in a team, and COVID exacerbated the fact a lot of people are individual by themselves, even if they are working on a team. So, what can we do as individuals who may feel disconnected from not only the world but their immediate teams to just keep focused and make sure that we are good, and are there certain things that we can do as allies and colleagues and friends to reach out to our people who are in our immediate and extended circles?
yeah, great question, great question. Um, I would say as an individual, there's this process I like to have, like this self-awareness process I like to have in terms of, check in with yourself, ask yourself, how are you feeling? Why am I feeling this way? If it's a good feeling, great. If it's not a good feeling, ask what you can do to change it. What can I do to stay this way if it's a good feeling? And who do I need to share this feeling with, right? It's more like a self-awareness check-in. But as you talk about where we are right now, a lot of people feel some people feel disconnected, especially with people working virtually. Um, I would encourage everyone, to find their circle. I mean, there's words like circle, tribe, community, all that, but find it. You know, my therapist told me it's not good. We're not, as humans, we're not supposed to be alone. Isolation is not good. So try to find it, and someone, whether it's text, social network, or single, Slack, whatever, and find that community that you can be real with. And then there's individuals like where they be on your mind and you hadn't heard from them in a while. Check on those individuals. And then at the end of the day, if you look someone in the eye and just like, how are you doing? How are you really doing? You know, um, I, you gotta be open. You gotta be open and vulnerable. Um, and then there's all these new apps out there. Everything from Clubhouse, like Twitter Spaces. We're gonna hop in. You know, reach out. Just participate, reach out. But I would, and I hope that answered your question. But I just want to encourage individuals, and especially teams. Just like you know, it can get burnout as a leader, constantly trying to find ways to like check on the employees and your team and make sure they're well. So I say set up a rotation. Whereas this week or this month, this is your time if you manage a team, this is your time to like do the wellness part of the team. Then rotate it out, right? Because it's a lot to worry about others, especially if your own world, is not doing that well.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and some companies do it better than others. I'm fortunate to be with a company that does encourage you to use, wellness time. They provide you with, space and resources and tools. Shout out to HPE. I
Yeah.
will also, like to just ask you about, in general, the Black men in tech that I work with. You know, we don't necessarily talk about mental health. I mean, it's like any other conversation you have with friends. It seems like a an awkward conversation to have unless you think there's a specific issue you're trying to address. So for example, I personally wouldn't know that there was an issue with one of my friends unless they said, hey, I'm dealing with this, or I'm struggling with this. If you sense something, do you have any tips or suggestions for, how to start that conversation, how to engage, and really, I guess this is universal. It doesn't necessarily have to be for Black men, but what does that look like? I mean, practically speaking.
Yeah, yeah. Great question. Great question. Practically speaking, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's like it's checking in on another human. It's like, how are you doing? How can I help you? You know, and let them know that you're not alone, right? Like, pre-COVID, it was like, oh yeah, give them a hug, right? You know what I mean? But it's like, um, we have to work on ways to removing the stigma and the stereotypes of being vulnerable for Black men. You have to do it, right? Sorry, just flying this hotel again.
Yeah.
But we have to work on ways like and I didn't grow up this way. I don't want to think like I grew up this way talking about mental health and being vulnerable and crying and all that, sharing my feelings. I didn't grow up this way at all. You know, my father, we wasn't a hug type. You know, I've learned that this is who I am. This is what I needed to survive. But to direct answer your question is like, you know, think about someone you see, um, and or you communicate with, and then all of a sudden you don't hear from them. Or you're
Okay.
thinking about someone who may like you look at body language often, and they may be a little more closed off or head down, right? Or someone that could be more aggravated or respond more quickly negatively when they used to be. You think, well, they're kind, right? Or someone who is just overly aggressive. I don't want to stereotype and put my own biases in any individual, but often you can relate to those individuals to some sort of trauma they're dealing with, or
Mm,
some sort of heart or childhood trauma, adult trauma, or oppression they're dealing with. And often it is just basic communication. How you doing? How can I help you? Is there anyone I need to call?
yeah.
And let them know you're sincere
Yeah.
and listen. And I think it's just basic from like and let them know it's okay to ask for help and it's okay to get help. And and like I'm more open and public about who I am and what I do, and I go to therapy. That's my choice.
Yeah.
Their choices doesn't have to be that way. It's okay to like, hey, we can keep it all private. I know a therapist. I know, so we can talk to. It's okay.
Is it still a stigma you think to discuss mental health issues in Black culture? I know that there's been a push to destigmatize, which I think is great, but is the message being received? Do you anecdotally feel that things are changing?
I do. I do feel like they're changing, and the stigma is still there, and we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go. I would say uh, we look at the people in the broader world who, I say broader world. We look at the different individuals who are quote unquote celebrities or famous or look at those humans, right? A few years ago, DeMar DeRozan came out and talked about his mental health and wellness. I
Mm-hmm.
don't. He wrote a couple articles. And DeMar DeRozan, NBA player, wrote a couple articles about how he was dealing with it, and I haven't heard too much from that. And I'm sure he's still doing more, but publicly I haven't heard too much about it. Then Kevin Love started talking about it, and he's invested into a startup in the Bay Area called Koa, and and then a few years ago, then earlier this year, I think I saw Meek Mill tweet that we need to change mental health. We need to make mental health cool in the community. We see Simone Biles talking about mental health. We see, um, 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 uh, forgive me for messing up the name, but Sherry Carter, I think that's the name, talking about mental health, what she's dealing with. So we see our athletes and our celebrities talking about mental health. They're in a different position than we are.
Yeah.
You know, when I was told, I wrote an article in 2017 about mental health and tech. And for those who think I've made it, oh hell no, I have not made it. I still, I'm on a budget on this trip cross country. Yeah, I live the lifestyle I live, but I've not made it by far, right? I'm surviving. But when I in 2017 wrote the article, I started going to therapy in 2012. I spent time in the mental hospital.
Yeah.
I've been there, and I was told don't write about it, don't share. This is gonna be the end of your career. And so we have come a long way, especially since COVID and the pandemic, but we have a long way to go. And I want to say also, hats off to like, there's a lot of places, a lot of humans that, doing great work, some startups and some companies. This goes back to your other question about what companies and teams to do. There's like Hurdle Health, there's Therify, there's Champions Mental Health, and all those programs and companies are founded by Black men.
Okay.
you know. And there's Ginger and Koa. Those are not founded by black men, but those companies are black people. Those companies are organizations that your company can partner with to bring in licensed therapists and professionals to do coaching sessions and so forth. But you can do the same thing with Therify, Her Health, and Champions Mental Health as well.
Yeah. Now, it was brought up in one of the earlier conversations today. imposter syndrome, and we just wanted to, kind of pivot to that for a second because I know that, I've heard you talk about imposter syndrome in the past. What can you tell folks, in tech specifically, and since we are primarily, I would venture to guess the majority of our attendees are going to be, of African descent. What can you say about imposter syndrome that would help somebody who might feel like they're less than with their current organizational role?
Yeah, great question. I would say, this may sound cheesy, but talk to yourself and say you belong, and be mindful of the voices that you are telling you. Be mindful of the conversation that you are having in your head, and it's not easy, And it's like you could be doing it consciously and unconsciously, of like thinking like, "Wow, I don't have this experiences, but I'm in this role. Why or how? Why do I deserve this? Or am I not good enough?" No, you are good enough. Before moving to Silicon Valley in San Francisco in 2012, I had this, like, my expectations and my bar that I had for all these famous people, all these high profile people in tech, all these like billionaires and millionaires, these founding these companies, that they were like geniuses. Like they went in Ivy League schools, they were like the best. They were like way smarter than I am. Someone who like went to basically a trading school for computer graphic design, self-taught IT, self-taught web developer, early adopter social media. I didn't go to college. I moved out there and I was like, okay, they're human just like me. And they're not as smart as I thought they were.
Yeah,
Be
I was gonna say
focused.
you talked to a couple of them, you realize that I can do this.
Yeah. I mean, I feel that they're often in a unique position of privilege to be able to with wealth and history, to be able to focus on one thing, or either figure out, like, not have the stress and depression that we as Black people have to deal with. They often in a unique position to have that mental capacity to focus on that one thing, to screw it up and get it right, screw it up and get it right till they get it right, and they surround themselves with a circle who help push them. That's what they have. And that's what we need to have. That's what you're creating for us. That's what we need to have. But besides that, they're human just like you are. So the person who's like doubting themselves, imposter syndrome, nah. And I deal with this too. I struggle with it. You belong. You got this. Ask for help. Have your circle, your community around you that's going to push you, that's going to check on you, and you'll say, you got this. And if you don't got it, it's still okay. Just keep going.
Yeah, and I'll plug Blacks in Technology at this point because we provide that community for folks who don't have a community. People are like, okay, well, it's nice to say, have a circle. I don't have a circle. You can join our community for free. We have a Slack channel with over, I think, 6,500 members now in there. So you can find your people within our greater community. So, if your interests are in, entertainment, say you like movies and music, we got people for that. We got sub channels in Slack just for all of that. So it doesn't have to be just tech. You can bring your whole self and we'll find out, how to work the tech in. So just my quick plug on that. What advice would you give to somebody who feels like they need support and maybe, aren't sure where to go and how to start, and, maybe they don't want to Google, mental health therapists? I mean, what do you say to somebody who is in need?
Yeah, great question. I should have answered that right off the top of my head.
That's
Be honest,
okay.
no, but it's a great question. Of the chair. I would say I'm trying to be mindful, like my own journey. What I did was to find the therapist I currently have now, which is amazing. Um, is I put myself out there and just said on Instagram actually, and say I'm looking for a therapist, and I got lucky because someone in my motorcycle community was going to school to teach childhood therapy, and so she was in a therapist network, and posted on a forum with my anonymous, did assessment of me, and did anonymous uh, ask and say, hey, this is assessment. Who would be interested to be Wayne's therapist? And she came back with three results, and I had conversation with those three, and so that was and I picked one. So that was we picked each other. So that was how I could find my current therapist. I put myself out there.
Okay.
For everyone else, it's like, you know, there are spreadsheets out there that I have a copy of that has a network, that has a list of like therapists that support Black and Brown people. You can email me, or I can provide that to you. With the Icon Project, we're working on a network of coaches and therapists for Black and Brown men. So you can contact me for that. The Icon Project, wayne at iconproject.org. But as other individuals, um, you know, I mentioned champions mental health, but also let me back up a little bit. Something I wrote down my notes. I prepared for this. Is that you know, if you currently employed, please know what your wellness and mental health opportunities that your company provides through insurance.
Mm, mm,
Please look that up, right? And because those companies are some of the companies I mentioned earlier, they work direct with the company, but they get paid through the insurance provider, right? And so your company should have that in covering your policy. So you may not want to go HR and all that, but like go run what it says in your company policy, and then you can, if they don't work with the companies that I recommended, then say, look, I want to bring these companies that specifically focus on people of color because I need, I'm looking for help. Um, yeah, and then there's like other networks, therapy for Black men, therapy for Black women, therapy for Black girls. So there's a lot of programs out there for us.
okay. No, that's good to know. And I didn't really think to go the insurance route and suggest companies to HR that would be beneficial to us specifically. But that is great. That is awesome. Um, I don't know if you are familiar with or use apps like Headspace or Calm. Do you? And what are your thoughts on those? I mean, I'm always suspect of any technologist can tell me they're going to help me with mental health. It's like talking to a robot, and I'm like, eh. But I'm hearing more and more that people really like these apps. So do you have an opinion?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I started using Headspace and Calm back in 2013, 2014. The phrase came out. Well, I think Headspace came out 2010, but that was my time when I was using it. And they were useful at the time. Mentioned as an introvert, I overthink and I need, and that's why I love ride motorcycle. Give me time to like my brain to calm down, to like disconnect from the world, right? And so those apps, they do help in terms of like, you know, listen to water or have someone walk you through a breathing exercise, like box breathing. So I do believe in meditation. I do believe in apps like Headspace and Calm. Um, they work. Um, but I would say, especially since the murder of George Floyd happened, when everything happened, it's like one thing that I got tired of was not feeling those apps were culturally aware to my needs and what I wanted. Right now, they may have changed in the last 2 years because a lot of people have like, okay, woke up, so to speak, and try to be more supportive. But there's a guy who spoke at Icon Summit. See, I'm finding my notes. uh, Julio Riera, who founded a company called Liberate Meditation, and it's a app safe space for Black community developed by Black and Latino women. And so Liberate Meditation app, because after a while, you want to hear, if you want to hear someone talking in your ear, your voices, you want to connect with them differently. You know what I mean? Um, but taking the time, 5-10 minutes. Some people do 30 minutes. For me, my kind of max is like 5-10 minutes, to focus and breathe and have that mindfulness of check in can be useful.
Yeah, I'm thinking that I'm gonna pursue meditation. I always tell myself I don't have time, but I think it's important to make the time for those things that are important, and ultimately it'll make me better. So
Yeah.
I'm manifesting it right now. I'm saying it to the world, so hopefully
Yeah.
I'll be held accountable for it. But yeah, I think there's opportunity for everyone to get into a better mental headspace, and it's hard to work with clarity if you've got other things cluttering your brain or self doubt or you know. You know, just a day to day. Hey, how am I going
Yeah.
to pay the bills this month?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Things
No.
like that.
Yeah. And I would say everybody doesn't have to have the same wellness practice, right? Like meditation, like you talked about walking earlier, it's like just walking meditation, right? There's box breathing, there's breathing meditation. For some, there's spiritual meditation, right? Like to, everyone's different, So I said, find out what works for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna take the next 15 minutes or so with Wayne and open it up to some audience questions. If anybody has questions, feel free to either drop them in the chat or put them in the Q&A. But I'll drop the link in for Blacks in Technology, and in the footer of the Blacks in Technology website is the link to apply for the Slack channel. The Slack channel is basically just it's a web form that you fill out, and that'll give you the ability to access the Slack. They'll email you a link, and you'll be able to communicate with folks through Slack. With that, I'll also mention that if you are currently a member and aren't in the Slack group, it's a great place to network and find other people of like spirit in mind. So definitely, I encourage you to do that. I think Wayne stepped away briefly. Maybe that fly was getting to him, but
Yeah, I had to relocate a little bit in the hotel, so but
yeah,
I'm
no,
still here.
no, no
We're
worries,
good.
no worries. So you say you're in Texas right now?
Yeah, I think I pronounced it right. Dalhart, Texas.
All right. And how far are
And
you away, according to your navigation from North Carolina?
I think about 1,700 miles to go. And so tomorrow I'm riding. Uh, forgot what it's called, but somewhere in Oklahoma. But by Thursday and Friday, I'll be in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I'm gonna check out Black Wall Street and stay there for a couple of days, and then continue to make my journey east.
All right. Nice, nice. All right. Let's see. I see that we. Let's say, Dennis, what's the link? Let me see. Where did I put that link? Oh, give me 1 second. I put the link in the wrong spot. So bear with me.
Okay.
I'm gonna drop it on the stage. So here's the link. All right. Oh, there we go. And that's the link to the Icon Project. Thanks, Renee. All right. Cool. And uh, while you're driving, so we're gonna switch from the heavy stuff because I feel like we've been getting kind of deep and heavy on the mental health stuff.
Okay.
So I'm gonna lighten up a little bit and talk about your photography and your Instagram. What's your Instagram handle for folks that want to check you out? By the way,
It's at Wayne Sutton, first last name. So on Instagram, and Instagram is somewhere along the line with doing the diversity inclusion work that I was doing on the last like 6, 7 years, which I got burnt out doing. Um, when Melinda and my wife and I we started riding motorcycles in 2018, Instagram became our safe spaces as post about motorcycles and adventure riding, having fun and nature, and not talking about work, right? And I feel like everyone needs that, right? They need a space where it's like, I'm not talking about work, I'm not talking about whatever. This is me and what I do for fun. This is my hobby. This is my other passion. And so, my younger sister is a photojournalist. My mom actually has a side hustle photography business in North Carolina, and I guess it's in the family. Like I love taking photos, love posting pictures, I love telling stories. So all that is kind of combined with my motorcycle adventures on Instagram.
All right, now you have a great eye. I just love to see your pictures, especially Northern California pictures. Just because I haven't been back in a while, and through the quarantine, it's good to see somebody who's actually out in the world.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's real cool. What type of projects do you have coming up with respect to the Icon project? Do you have any events, things of that nature that folks might want to check out?
Yeah. So with the Icon project, so in the first quarter of 2022, we're going to open up applications for the therapy fund. Again, that's for the individuals who may not have access to coaches or therapists who may need some financial support. And also in 2022, around in the first quarter, we open applications for the Fellows Program. So the Fellows Program is going to be a virtual program for Black and Brown men in tech, for entrepreneurs who are looking for a different type of a program to help them as humans, as individuals, to grow and with their careers, whether they're joining a company or they're launching a startup. So it's looking at to help coach them along their path.
Okay. All right. Cool. Cool. And there was a question about the list of therapists. You mentioned that you had a list of organizations that could provide. Is that something that you have publicly available, or is that something that we would have to reach out to you directly for?
I don't have it public available now because I want to make sure that I credit the source that I get it from. And so what I can do, um, I tweet it out later today. Like this spreadsheet of therapists because I think it's a public list. It's just matters of people spreading it around,
Okay.
or I just put in a blog post on the Icon Project, one or the other.
Okay. Good deal. All right. We got a couple of questions in the chat. Hey, my boy Jeremy is in the building. Hey, Jeremy. It says, in your opinion, how closely is wellness correlated with time management, efficiency, and success?
Oh, wow, I would say it's directly correlated. I mean, I feel like people who let me pause right there. My first thought was that it's directly related by that people who are able to manage their time, they are aware that they need to have a wellness practice. That's my assumption. Um, but then I would say I'm like somewhere in between. Like I need to do a better job of managing my time, and I spend too much time on Instagram, spend too much time overthinking, and I think right now I have a good wellness practice. So I think it's kind of it's an individual thing. But I would dare to say, we look at a lot of success stories. People say they wake up at 5 in the morning, they walk, they read, they journal. I do believe there's a lot of benefit to it.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to skip Jeremy's next question. I'll come back to you, Jeremy, but I want to make sure I get as many different questions as possible. Having done work in diversity and inclusion, can you maybe identify some of the effects of being the only Black person on your team or even department?
No, yeah, great question. Yeah, that can be traumatizing. It just can create a um, we talked about imposter syndrome earlier. That experiences like that can cause this imposter syndrome when you're the only one. It can create a sense of isolation. It can create a sense of hopelessness, and also it can create a sense of like this other sense of drive. You're like, you know what? I'm going to make sure I'm not the only one. I'm going to increase this number. So it can have some often more than often it has negative effects. But in other cases, we see have this other effect with like this drive that I'm going to change this. And so, but um, those situations, are a situation where I really encourage others to have a strong network, strong community around them. Because you often there's so much weight we put on you from being stereotyped, from being um, token, being token, being talking about tokenism, being the only one. Um, and so, yeah, it's a lot of pressure there. And I've been in too many situations like that. Part of the reason why I'm in therapy now.
Yeah, I mean, I can really. I mean, I've been, in tech now for, I guess it's 25 years now. Ooh.
You look good, man. You look good.
Yeah, black don't crack. I started when I was 5. But seriously, I think for me, it's been situations where I've either been the only person of color on my team. I've lived in, places where I was the only black person, in my neighborhood, you know, quite, quite frankly, and in those situations, you feel isolated, you feel excluded, and unless you are really aggressive and going out and engaging and making friends and finding those people who are going to make you feel comfortable, it can be, it can put a strain on the brain. Let's put it that way, because you have to think about it all the time. It's not something that's kind of passive that, a lot of people take for granted when they go to the grocery store. They just go get stuff. When I go to the grocery store, I used to think, I'm the only black person in here. I'm sure 5 people are following me around right now, just because, not that I'm doing anything or feel, that
Yeah.
people are. It's just mentally is what I thought. And in those situations, it's hard to just navigate life, let alone be, successful at work or, be aggressive. And like you said earlier, I saw guys who had a lot of self-confidence, and they had the ability to, express themselves. I've seen people pound fists and yell in conference rooms and walk out and storm out and then walk back in. I'm like, I could never. I don't have that freedom and flexibility.
No, no.
I would never put myself in a situation where, um, I would even consider entertaining that. But they have the freedom to fail. They have the freedom of comfortability and flexibility to do those things. And when you don't have that, it can, it can tax you. It can definitely tax you.
Agreed.
We got, let's see, how much time do we have left here? Okay, we got 5 minutes left with Wayne. So let's see, I'm going to look at the questions. See, we probably got room for one or two more. Okay, I'm going to ask this one. Jeremy's the most recent one. I said, describe someone in your business circle that once showed great promise, but just couldn't cut it. What were their strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities they missed?
I'm not going to talk about another individual. First of all, I like the question, but I'm not going to talk about another individual. But I am going to talk about myself. Um, um, I want to write this book on failure. And a lot of people talk about failure, and all that. And again, like I said, I'm very lucky. I'm very privileged. I am in a situation. I'm traveling cross country, right? You know, like I said, I'm not rich, but I've been on the borderline of homeless at times in my career. I've been on the borderlines of, I stayed in hostels when I first moved to San Francisco, Silicon Valley. And there's some things I haven't even shared here. I'm just like, I've been in a situation where it's like, mental hospital. And yeah, I also been in a situation where I'm walking out of a TED conference in California, and Jeff Bezos is right in front of me, holding the door for me as I walk out. I'm in a situation where I'm at a party and the founder of Google is right there, and somebody introduced me to Larry. I've been in a situation where, um, you know, I'm crossing paths with David Drummond often. First, black high executive at Google, right? Crossing paths with, walking down the street and um, Bidstone, one of the co-founders of Twitter, has come out the door and he's like, "How you doing?" He's like, "Hey, how you doing? What are you working on now?" And I freeze up, and I don't respond. Um, opportunity where I was like years ago invited to Ben Horowitz house and I messed up that experience and never been invited back, right?
I really want to know that story, but I asked you another time.
I've never said that publicly, never wrote about that, but that's the true story. Never been back. I messed that up. Been stories where I didn't know what I really didn't know what um, code switching was when I moved to Silicon Valley. I really didn't know what it was, and I talked behind. And this is another black man who I've been thinking about. I need to reach out to and apologize for. This was in 2012 or 2013, and I was talking to another young black man entrepreneur about code switching, and I didn't understand it back then. And and I was talking about that other person, and I shouldn't have done it, and I regret it to this day. Um, um, you know, I've been in all these amazing opportunities with all these individuals, like networking. Jeff Bezos. I've been invited to the White House, South by Southlawn. I've spoken on congressional panels in the Senate about diversity and inclusion. Um, I've been asked to write a book for Wiley twice over the past 5 years, and I freeze up and never turn in a outline. Probably because I don't feel like I'm cut out to do it, or the topic I don't want to do it, or my anxiety is so high, I just can't do it. So we talk about someone who feels like that they had the potential but haven't lived up to it. I look in the mirror. I look in the mirror.
Mm, mm. That's deep, brother. All right, and yeah, I mean, code switching is one of those things that either you do or you don't, and then you have to navigate both lines, and we have a whole conversation around what that entails and how to navigate. But I appreciate you for being so open, and this is a great conversation. I appreciate all the things that you're doing currently, and I'm looking forward to all the good things that Icon Project is going to do in the future. And
Thank you.
like I said, I'm going to shoot you an email with my information. If you're coming through Charlotte area,
All right.
that,
I'm coming through.
that invitation's still open.
I appreciate it.
All
Appreciate it,
right.
Dennis. And much success with everything. Thank you.
All right. Take care, Wayne. And everyone, we're going to be talking about, extended reality, alternate, universes, and all types of other things, VR and XR, with our next guest, Chris Lafayette, in about 5 minutes or so. So take a quick break and come back. Talk soon.